Hello my gorgeous makeup loving friends, welcome back to another Swatching Sundays. This week I am technically going with an older palette in the sense that it has been out for a few weeks now, and the fact that we're talking about weeks as being old is terrifying, but for those of you who watch releases and rants, you kind of get the message. There's a lot of newness, old becomes new and new becomes old very, very quickly. This week, I wanted to talk about the Sugarock Luna Lure palette. I keep wanting to call it Lilac Lure, but it's not. This is what it looks like. Very pretty, right? This actually sold out pretty quickly over on cbeauty Mall and on several other sites. So I kind of thought, hey, this might be worth talking about. Part of why I actually purchased this was a little bit of FOMO because their previous palettes were like very, very popular. Again, they did very, very well. But I wanted to put this through its paces in terms of swatching to determine whether or not it's actually worth it so that you guys could make some informed decisions. If you haven't watched Swatching Sundays before, let me give you but a brief synopsis on what it is that I do. So I swatch the palette, I then kind of change around the lights. I go from highlight, low light to daylight, etc. And I also mess about with cameras. So I film on a Canon, but I also film on an iPhone so that you can get the most holistic understanding of what this palette might actually look like. In an additional kind of effort to understand the palette a little bit more, I also kind of play about with it on primed skin and using brushes just to see what the sort of more natural effect would look like. Because obviously swatches don't actually dictate what it's going to look like on the eye. So I do kind of mess about to see if kind of brush application, etc. will impact, etc. and what sort of fallout we're getting from that. So if that sounds like something you are interested in and you really want to see the Luna Lure in action, then this is the video for you. Do please keep on watching. So I'm going to start off in a way that's a little bit more unusual for Swatching Sundays. I want to talk about the outside of the palette itself. I would have thought that this was going to be more metal, etc., but it's actually quite plastic. And considering there's a €136 price tag on it, I was a little bit dismayed when that actually occurred. Now there are actually some metally bits, so these bits here are metallic and then these pieces here are a little bit more plastic. It's a very light palette. I wouldn't have thought it would have been quite so lightweight. But in all, it does look quite nice. My other slight thing about this is that when you have it like this, when you open it like this, you can't lay it flat. So you can't lay the mirror flat. That's not a massive deal, but I know that some people actually like to use their mirror for makeup application and you kind of can't really do that. It's a little bit more difficult in that particular sense, but it does have a nice magnetic closure, so it does stay shut. But these pieces, I've had instances recently where they've kind of like fallen off. You can remove them, but I would have just thought they would have been a smidgen more secure given the price tag. But let's get into the actual swatching. In case you're wondering what the story is with the stencils, I actually tend to cut off the bits of the stencils that I'm not using because, you know, waste not, want not. And that seemed quite funny, this little measure of frugality juxtaposed against this quite an expensive eyeshadow palette. Now, this palette doesn't actually have any names of the shadows, so we're just going to go from what is top to bottom here for me, but it will be left to right for you guys. So let's just get straight into it. We have our first 4 shades here, and can I just talk about these shimmers? These are really, really interesting formulas. They're really kind of gel-like, cream-like. It's very interesting in terms of a sensory feeling. They look like they're going to be smoother than they are, and there is a smoothness to them, but there's also like this creaminess. It's really quite unusual. The mattes are not dry. They're quite, I hate saying it, buttery, but they are. It is what it is. Let's see what they're like in terms of swatching. I will say I've actually swatched these before. Look at how nice these are for my YouTube community members. So they're like, yeah, Teresa, we've seen this. Yeah, you have, but you haven't seen it in all the different lighting conditions. But you can see very nice pigmentation. And I can even feel, and I have used this since, I can feel just via the swatching alone that they are very buildable. As per usual though, I will be kind of adding into this and building this up to full opacity, but even just on those first few swipes, you are building it up pretty darn well. And here we can see this shade, as you're looking at it on the camera, is very green. From my perspective, it's a very blue purple. Is this a very unique sort of a shade? No. This sort of a shift from a purple to green to a blue, we see this all the time. But it's the formulation that's a little bit more unusual. It's a very gel-based sort of a thing. Almost like, you know, when you get those pots of creamy sort of eyeshadows. It's like that, but in a slightly different form. It's very unusual. This one here has a little bit more flakiness to it. I go very light in, by the way, into the pans, and it just kind of was like, here you go. The shadows here, really nice sort of a formula to them, the same as the mattes that I looked at previously, but they are quite nice. I always have a tendency to kind of put this stencil on in such an odd way that I have to like really angle my arm to try to put these on and show them off. It's my own fault I do this to myself. Look at that. See how that's kind of like very almost gel based. Very unusual. And we're on the final 4 shades. This one here is a really nice shift between a sort of a yellowy green to a pale purple to quite a bright pink. And I think as you're seeing it on the camera, it's turning up as quite that nice bright pink. This shade here is almost more of a silver. Again, that same sort of interesting gel sort of a formula. And we have our mattes. Same sort of experience as with the previous ones. So let's see about the swatches. Now I am applying these quite heavily on. I will say that when I'm wearing them on the eye, I have more of a tendency to kind of tap those shimmery shades on rather than kind of swiping them on, because I prefer more of like a topper effect, and it is possible with these ones, just in case you were wondering. And there we go, that's the whole thing swatched on my Franken stencil. Does mean it's going to be a little bit trickier to remove because I have essentially 3 stencils shoved together. But let's see. Oh, I managed it. Look at that. Very nice. So as you can see there, there's actually no fallout, and just from my little eyeballs, what I can see here is a really nice level of shimmer. The mattes, super built up, really nice. On the camera, I think you can see the level of those metallic-y duochrome shimmers. They're very nice. We do have quite a few lights on, not as many as is the maximum. As you guys might know who've watched Swatching Sundays before, right now I have a ring light at a 90-degree angle and there's 2 box lights. But to see what this would be like if you were, for example, using this on stage, I'm going to add in 1 extra overhead light to really saturate it so you can see what this might look like. And just so you guys know, the overhead light that I have is more kind of yellow toned, whereas the ring light is more white light based. So just keep that in mind. All of these things do impact the way that these things look. You can see obviously those shimmers aren't as like wabam in your face, but that's kind of par for the course. However, the mattes, still extremely pigmented, super buildable. You could see they have a nice base there and no fallout, which I personally really enjoy. However, to really appreciate the duochromes and the shimmers, we're now going to start pissing about with the lights a little bit further by taking away some light. I have made sure that the light is as kind of controlled as possible. I have curtains and everything so that I can be like, go away, external light, because I just don't want that for these purposes. And now I just have the ring light on at the 90-degree angle, and I think that right now you can make out those shimmers that little bit better. I'm going to slowly rotate my arm like it's a rotisserie chicken. Delicious. Will you have salad with that? I don't know. Maybe a cannibal is looking at this and being like, yes, if it wasn't for the swatches, that would be a delicious piece of meat to nibble on. I don't know. Maybe this is how people are kind of given things in their feed. I don't know. And I do think the use of the word feed is quite interesting there. So you can see the shimmers quite well here. Obviously, however, even with the ring light, the very design of that, it will disperse the light to a certain degree. So we're going to go into my favorite condition now, where we turn off all the lights and I just have the light from my phone. It's exciting and very sparkly. Even here, now that I've put this light on, you can see the drama associated with this. Like, those shimmers are so beautiful. I'm going to move around the source of the light a little bit more so that you can see the shifts on the shades that are more duochrome in nature. You can see you're getting a lot of high sparkle here as well. Oh yeah, she's pretty. She's beautiful. I'm going to move it over here so that we can see it in that sense. Oh yeah, this is my exercise, by the way, for the day. I'm joking, this is not my exercise. God, can you imagine? But even here, I want to get you close to the camera and so you can see those shimmers. A little bit of a blur there, but hopefully giving you at least some idea of what these look like. Can the camera focus? No, because it's like I am so distracted by all of these beautiful things, which honestly, fair camera, fair. I am also very distracted by the beauty. Let's see, can I get you in close again? Or is it going to like freak out again? There we go. So you can see those kind of shimmers quite nicely. And we can see the palette in the background, which is again giving us a little bit more information as to what these would look like. Now I am shooting, by the way, on a Canon. That's going to impact things. Obviously the type of camera that you're using, the amount of megapixels that it's able to calibrate, develop, that's going to impact things. But I do feel like this captures the duochromes quite nicely. Again, that level of movement is letting you know about the sparkles that we have here. And I just think it's gorgeous. Or is it just me? I think that's so pretty. I'm going to switch over now to my iPhone 14 to show you what that is like on that camera. So I've switched over now to the iPhone 14. I will say, because I'm looking at this through the lens of my phone, it is not capturing it in the way that it actually looks in reality. Like it's way more like, wow. But let's kind of go up here to the top. And I find like when I zoom in, it's giving you a little bit more of, strangely, the reality of what these look like, because they are actually frighteningly impactful. They are really pretty. I do feel like that silver is a bit of like, I mean, it's pretty, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I hate it. But when you look at the other shimmers that's in there and the sort of caliber that we're looking at, I'm like, you're lucky you were invited to the party. You know, what are you bringing to this metaphorical table? Right? The rest of them are really interesting. Now, when I zoom out like this, it doesn't look as amazing, but my eyeballs are picking up an entirely different story. So strangely, the zoomy in bit is more indicative of what it actually looks like. Now, the mattes, you can see there, really nice, smooth application. There's no chalkiness, there's no lumpy bumpiness. You know how sometimes you'll have like crazy amounts of fallout, but it's looking beautiful in this particular situation. However, you know me, annoyingly thorough, will go and check this out in some more situations just to see what the story is. So we're now in my hallway where there's no direct light. There's a source of light just there, just ahead of me, but there's no direct light on here. And I do still feel like you can see these pretty well. Now the issue obviously with lighting like this is that you can't see those more metallic shades in the way that they truly function. They look a lot more flat, much less dynamic than they did previously. However, if this is the sort of a lighting condition that you might find yourself in, this is indicative of how this would potentially look, particularly if you applied it in this particular manner. Let's always be very upfront about these things. But yeah, it doesn't obviously like get you in the same way as it did in the previous condition, but such is life. And we have shifted to yet another condition in which there is no direct light because I'm in my kitchen and just the way that it's facing, I don't know if it's north, south, east, west, etc. It doesn't get a lot of light at this particular time of the day. I've no overhead lights, but look at the way that this is being captured here. And this is the difference in the camera that you can really see here, because I'm back onto my Canon. Previously, I was on the iPhone, and I feel like the iPhone just was not picking that up in the same way. Like this looks a lot more interesting, at least to my eyeballs. And this is much more indicative of how this actually looks. This is quite similar to the reality of these things, just to give you an overview of that. However, we're going to mess it out a little bit further and we're going to go into some more indirect light. So we're going to stand at the window and hope that the neighbours do not judge me. They probably do, but such is life. And we're now using the exact same camera again, but we're at the window where there's a little bit more direct sunlight. Because believe it or not, it's not a super sunny day, but there's actually a little bit of daylight. So who would have thought it? And this is what this looks like. I'm going to just move around my arm a little bit just so you can see the shimmers on that. I do feel like the shimmers are being captured quite nicely here. In this instance, it's coming off, you're not getting quite the sparkles that you would see, as I'm saying in reality. But your look, cameras can only capture so much. That's what the rest of us have to really effing struggle with. But if that's the biggest of our struggles, we're doing quite well. Let us venture outside. And I'll see if I come across any bees, because they are still visiting my garden and it makes me very happy. I can confirm that there were, in fact, bees as I came outside, so that's pleased me. I have also been thinking about, like, maybe I should get some beehives. Would that be strange? We do have a little bit of sunlight today. Who would have thought it? And this is capturing things quite nicely. However, it's kind of giving more of a metallic here, when the reality is, God, can't even put the words out, is that it's more sparkly than metallic. Like, this is just kind of chunking it all together so that it looks like a big streak of metallic, and that's not really the reality. This is more indicative of how it's looking in the direct light. Kind of that nice sparkliness. Just as an FYI, can the camera focus? No, it can't. It's like we can't figure out where the light source is because of all of these sparkles. But yeah, you can see there, it does look like it's like a streak of metallic. But the reality is that it's a little bit more like this when you're looking at it. But again, I'm on my Canon. We're going to shift over to an iPhone now just to see what the story is. Can I also just say I cannot figure out what the weather is doing because it's actually quite warm now. And I'm like, I had my heating on last night. What is going on? This is capturing things fairly well. Again, it's showing you kind of the shifts pretty nicely here. However, it's not letting you see the sparkle. I really do have to zoom you in so you're getting more of an indicative idea as to what it actually looks like. Because as I'm eyeballing it, it's not coming across as metallic streaks. It's more those sort of sparkles, which is very nice. And there are bees nearby. Oh, look. Can we capture the bee? There was a bee. It was very exciting. Sorry. I'm on bee watch. I'm like, the plant is dying. What can I do to get some bees to come to my house? And apparently it's to plant as many plants as I physically can. But yeah, let's go and see what the story is like when we're using different application methods and actually have primer on, because that's the big indicator. So I have primed the arm with the MAC Paint Pot and Sing to a Whisper. I use this all the time. And I have 4 spaces here for messing about. I'm going to try a variety of brushes from different brands to see what the story is when they interact with these. So I have a Blend Bunny little sort of a pencil brush. This is great for packing on colour. And I'm going to go into this shade here. Now I'm actually going to be proper and actually tap off excess so that we can see what this looks like. I have been very naughty, and in past swatching Sundays, I haven't done that properly. I've just kind of put it on with reckless abandon, and maybe I need to be a little bit better on that. I don't know. But you can see this is giving you a good bang of pigment straight away. And yes, it is on a white base, so obviously that is going to help quite a bit. Obviously, if you're using a nude one, it'll come off a little bit differently, but I just wanted to give you the most accurate way that this might actually look. So you can see it's kind of blending out, no major issue. And this is not the sort of brush that you would necessarily use for that. So it's just kind of good to see that that's what the story is there. Let's bring it out here and just kind of pack it on. I'm very sorry about my veins. They're all over the place. This is what happens when you're as fair as I am. I know it's probably not the nicest sight, but hopefully it doesn't put you off. And if it does, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But you can see there, it's really nice. Nice pigment. It's blending quite easily, but I want to see what this is going to look like if we mesh it with something else. And I wanted to use a very different color this time around. I am using the BH and I wanted to go into this one here. It's a pink, which does complement that sort of a purple, but I just thought it could be quite interesting to see how they might mesh with each other. So firstly, just stamping this on to see the level of pigment that we're getting. And it does look like that is coming out quite nicely. Again, tapping it off. See, I'm learning. I'm trying to do these a little bit better. Look at the way that that's already starting to actually blend with the other one. And it's not like I'm doing this with any great sort of precision, and it's on an arm, which is different to an eye, but you can see there's that little bit of meshing there, which is nice to see. I'm going to put it over. Just, why not? Why not? I can do what I like. This is my channel. Just have a really dreamlike sort of sequence and see how they blend when they're like that. Oh, science! Except it's not really science. It's just me pissing about in my office room. Not that I do office work in here. I have a different room for officey work. Ha ha ha! I know, privilege. But you can see they do blend quite nicely. What I might do is go back in with that previous shade and see if that builds in quite nicely. I'm again using that blend bunny. I'm just going to tap that there, see what the story is. Ah, nice blend back in again. You can add that colour back in. Yeah, no major issue there. That's quite nicely done here. And I know I'm not spending a massive amount of time on it simply because I can't be bothered, but you can derive from that you could get nice blending if you're working on this for any period of time. Now I'm taking this Jessup, it's a 223, because like I said, I want to try a couple of different ones, and I'm going into this more kind of, it's almost a green grey, and I'm going to tap that on. Just see what the story is there. And I'm not tapping off excess because I noticed that this one is quite light and I want to go in with as much pigment as I physically can. Ha ha ha. Because I do what I want. I'll tap off a little bit there because I do kick up quite a bit. And I'm keeping that light just so you can see kind of the difference there of when that's added versus not added. And you're getting a nice pigment there. It's a very light pigment, so obviously like you're not going to get like a huge amount of colour, but like you're getting the right amount of colour for that pigment shade. So that's looking pretty darn good. It's a pencil brush. It will whack on a good amount of colour. And I now want to take actually a blending brush. This is a Spectrum B07 and I want to go into this shade here. It's a very dark shade and I'm going to tap off the excess again. Just going to tap just out here towards the very edge and just see how that blends with that sort of a grey. Can we get a nice sort of a transition between the two? Ooh, that's nice. I like the two of these together. It's quite a sexy look. Now, bearing in mind, it's picking up texture on my arm. Why? Because I have an arm and it's textured and it's different to the skin on my eyelid. But look, it is what it is and we won't get too upset about it. It just, look, that's how skin is. That's how my arm is. It's weird, it's veiny and has weird texture. And I never notice it until I start putting products like this on. Then I'm like, what the fuck is up with my arm? But sure, look. It is what it is. But you can see there's a really nice transition between the two. That's really nice and easy. So I appreciate that. But I want to add in a few other bits. So this time I have an Artitude Cosmetics one. It's a little pencil one. And I want to go in with this dark. I want to see if we blend from dark to light, will we have a different situation? Because I've just done light into dark. I want to see, are we going to get a slightly different sort of a transition here? So nice level of pigment here with this one. I also think I can mesh with all of these mattes at some point. Like I want to use the entire palette to give you an idea as to what it looks like, because it's an expensive one. If you're thinking about purchasing this, I want you to be able to make some sort of like an informed decision. Mind you, it's like sold out on cbeauty Mall. The green one is still there, so I might do that one next week if you guys are interested. Because yes, I was foolish and I got the two. Don't even talk to me about that. But look, nice level of pigment. No major issue here. And now I am taking a BH Cosmetics. It's one of the ones that was in like a little set. And I'm going into that pale purple that we had earlier. And I'm just going to tap that there. Again, Nice level of pigment. We're also seeing how it's used across different brushes. This is slightly different. I was using a pencil brush before. This is more of like sort of like a flat pack brush. So you're getting a slightly different sort of an impression of it. At least that's the hope. You might be sitting here going, Teresa, this is all wildly unnecessary. Totally fair. Totally fair. But let's see what this is like when we're actually swishing between the two. Are these going to mesh? And they quite frankly should, because they're of the same sort of colour family. I know that one is more of like a blue toned purple and one is a little bit more red toned, but they should mesh relatively okay. And we do see that there, they do. Now, I will say, what I have a tendency to do is when I'm in a rush, I'll take a little, this is a Cosmic Brushes one, by the way. I'll take a little bit of this, I'll take a little bit of that, and I'll just go in between. So this is indicative of how I would actually do things. And look, straight away, eases out that transition. No bother. That's that one done, nice and easy. But again, we want to be overly thorough, and I'm using a Real Techniques brush. So we are really getting a diversity of brands here, and I've gone into the slightly lighter green. And I'm just going to pop that there. You can see this is, by the way, again, more of like a flat pack brush. It's not like a pencil brush. So again, using slightly different types of brushes each time so that we can see what we're getting here. High level of pigment. You got to say that. You got to admire that from them. So kudos on that. Très bien. And now I'm taking an Artitude Cosmetics brush, and it is a fluffy blender. I will tend to use that if I'm putting on a darker shade, just so I don't go in too much. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm going to pop that out here towards the very edge. So you can see you're getting it on a lot lighter than with that one. But let's see what the story is here. Are they blending nicely? Oh, look at that. They're like straight into each other straight away. Ooh, that's a nice one. I like that. I'd love a yellow in there, like a bright yellow, just to really make that pop. That'd be really fun. So now we've tried all of the mattes. We've seen how well they've actually meshed with each other. Let's see what the story is with the shimmers. I tend to apply with the finger and then just kind of lightly spruce it out. Is that the word? Lightly blend it out with a brush. So I'm going to go in with my disgusting finger, and I think I'll go into this one here. That feels like that would work. And I'm just going to lightly tap that on there. Tippity tappity tippity tap, because again it's slightly different than the way that I would have put it on previously, and I'm going to take that shade very lightly and just tap that there to see how the two of those look when they're put together. As I said, my preference then is to just take a brush, and this is a Zoeva 224, and I'm not taking any new product. I'm literally just going to do this swishy swishy and just disperse it a little bit more cleanly. That's all that is there. And I want to take this shade here, the more silver, and just kind of tap that on so that it's more loose, because before, you know, the way that I was doing it was really packing it on, but I don't really tend to wear things like that. And then just go in with this shade here, that more metallic-y shade. And I feel like they mesh together quite nicely. And let's just take a Spectrum B11 and swish those out to see what the story is there. I think it really eases the transition quite nicely. I'm now going to take this shade here. It's more pink, and I'm just going to pop that there. And I want to actually see what it's like with this one as well, because that's another pink, and just see how different they are when they're applied. Just out of interest, because I can do what I like within reason. And I'm now just taking, I have so much shimmer all over me. I'm now just taking a Morphe brush, and I'm just going to smoosh there. It's not a super versatile palette, it's just purples and greens, but like, again, should give you some idea. And I did say earlier when I was talking about this one that I love like a yellow in there. This is a very vibrant green, so I think I'm going to pop that there just to really add that in. And this shade as well, because why not? And actually, let's be really weird and add in an extra dimension and pop this in here. just in between the two, so that we have something a little bit more different. And I'm just going to use, what am I going to use? Yes, a Morphe M562 brush, and just swish to see what the story is there. So as you're watching this, I just have a ring light on and 2 box lights, and you're watching on my Canon, but this is what it would look like in that particular situation. I am going to mess with the lights now and just have it so that we have the source from my phone so that you can see what that would look like. There we go. I have the light now on my phone. The swatches are on my arm and are a little bit more indicative of how we would potentially wear them. So I want to kind of get close up so that you can see the sparkles and the way that they're kind of showing up there, which is, I think, really beautifully. And then when we come like this, again, I'm just going to change where the light is. You can see some of the shifts on that. So that's a little bit more indicative of how you potentially wear it and what it would look like and how everything interacts. You can see the sparkles are so pretty. Like, it is really high sparkle. Like, I don't know what other way to say it. Like, is there another word for sparkle? Glimmer, shimmer. Although shimmer seems like it's a little bit like underwhelming for what we're talking about here. Again, just kind of give you an idea as to what these look like. And that's again on a Canon. So let's shift over to an iPhone and see what the story is there. So we're on my camera now, on my camera phone, and I do feel like this is picking up the sparkles actually probably the most accurately right now as to what this looks like. Like, look at that one. Ooh, beautiful. The mix of those 3 actually shimmers is really fun. Ooh, I do like that. And then the silver into the green, that's really pretty. So again, just to give you a little bit more of a holistic view as to what these might actually look like, I'm hoping this is helpful, because I feel like particularly when you're looking at a palette that is this expensive, you can't just be throwing your money away on things like I do. And hopefully this might help you make some decisions one way or the other. That is always the hope. Alright, my gorgeous friends, that's it. I know it's an annoyingly thorough video, but it is what it is. I personally think it's useful. I hope it's useful. It's not functioning as a review, right? Because I think one of the biggest things that people look for is whether or not a palette is of value. And I personally feel like even the variable of value is such a subjective one. It's going to depend on our income, on our relative kind of use of palettes, etc., or even like our current palette depository. What's our collection? There we go. Depository. Welcome to the palette depository. Yeah. But anyways, this obviously is the palette. I will say though, I think that the packaging, I'm a little bit not miffed, but like, I feel like it could have been better. But I think, you know, when you pay that much for a palette, that's kind of the expectation, you know, that it would be a little bit more whoopam. But anyways, I do hope that this was helpful to you guys. I have the other one, the green one that came out at the same time. Look, look, I have very little self-control. And the impulsive nature of the autism takes over and just goes, yay, let's buy the things. I don't regret it. I have it. I enjoy it. But I was thinking I might do that one next week if you guys are interested. But do let me know what you guys think. Did you get this? Have you been on the fence on it? Are you hoping that it comes back in stock? Blah, 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 blah. I'll have links down below, you know, if you want to get anything from cbeauty Mall or from any other things. Anything with an asterisk is a little affiliate link because, you know, transparency and all of that jazz. Anyways, my gorgeous friends, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Do please like, comment and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell and do please share, because sharing is caring, except of course for STDs, in which case just wrap it up. Don't be gross. But that's it. That's the end of the video and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.